Hello, welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. Running a little late. I wanted to start right at 5:30 Central Time. That didn't work out. Oh well, no big tragedy there. We have two old brands, Early Times, Kentucky whiskey, introduced in 1860. Is this the original recipe? I doubt that. It's aged at least 3 years, 36 months. A Brown-Forman brand since about 1926, I believe. I read in the 20s. Old Granddad, introduced in 1882. Is this the original recipe? No. They're both 80 proof. Now, this is bourbon. That is not. Why? Because of the aging, the time? No. Because this is aged in first used charred white oak barrels, and that's aged in used oak barrels. Okay. It says it right on the bottle. This is a high rye mash bill. That is not. So this has no age statement, meaning it's at least 4 years. I think I'll be able to tell these apart relatively easily because of the rye. It's going to give it that peppery note. Although I have to say, okay, let's try to do this. I have to say that the Early Times was pretty rich, had a nice rich flavor, had a lot of character. I didn't know what it was going to be like. Excuse me. The Early Times was $8.99 at Winn-Dixie, all right? The Old Granddad was $9 at the Citgo station, Birdie's Citgo. Hey, buddy, haven't watched your vids for a while, but cheers to you, says Isaac Rockmore. Hello, Isaac. Good to hear from you. I hope you watch more videos in the future if you care to do so. Okay, so E.T., Early Times. So it would be considered a bourbon except for the barrel situation. Yeah, what does it say? In reused cooperage. In reused cooperage. That's a fancy way of saying used barrels. Reused cooperage. Old Granddad is a Beam-Suntory brand, by the way. So we have two Kentucky Japanese/Kentucky company, Beam-Suntory versus Brown-Forman of Kentucky and the world. Oh, they're both gold amber, look similar. Now, do I have enough experience drinking the Early Times to be able to say, oh, that tastes like Early Times? I know that. No, because I only drank it once. But I have made repeated tastings of the Old Granddad, so I think that will show itself. Good morning, Ronald, says Bill McIntosh. Good morning, Bill. I hope y'all can hear me all right. I can't hear my playback. Okay, so I'm using this new browser, Opera. I had a lot of trouble with Chrome, and I had trouble with Internet Explorer in the sense that I got kicked out. How is the eclipse in the south, says Isaac. It was a dud where I live. I thought it was going to get dark mostly, but it got a little, the light got a little bit dim, and then that was it. It's like a brownout. It was sort of like somebody put a filter over the sky, got a little dark, and then it got light again. So it wasn't too much. I remember something in the 80s that was much darker. Okay, so it sounds perfect. Good. The audio sounds perfect. Good, good. So I think I'll be using this platform from now on. This browser. Somebody had mentioned it, and I never heard of it, and I started setting it up. It seems fast. Okay. Yeah, it's got a whiskey smell. How about that? Alcohol burn in the nose, whiskey smell, antiseptic. That caramel, the vanilla, the oak. Okay. Okay. I'm using these little mini snifters this time. I do the brandy tastings in these. They're about the right size. You don't drink too much. I think this one has a more peppery note. Nice alcohol eggs. This has a sweeter note. So this is more sugary and this is more peppery. So already, I think, I didn't call it yet. I'm just saying, I think this is the early times and this is the old granddad. I live in Eugene, Oregon, says Isaac, and the freeways were just way too much. They were too crowded, huh? Victor Queeman says, great morning, Ron. Hey, good morning to you. All right, so let's go with the, good morning to you, Victor. Let's go with the taste. Okay. A lot of that sugary, light caramel or light brown sugar taste, light caramel, some vanilla, some wood. Like standard American whiskey. That's what I said in my initial solo review of early times. Standard American whiskey. Okay. Same attributes, okay, that I just described. The woody, the caramel, light brown sugar, vanilla. That taste that the U.S. government's Tax and Trade Bureau calls, now this is a legal thing. The taste that they say is commonly associated with whiskey. So to be a whiskey, it not only has to follow certain protocols in production, it also has to taste like what is commonly associated with whiskey. But this one has more pepper. There's even regulations on making mixed drinks. Now, how that would be enforced, you figure that out. Like, this is how a Bloody Mary should be made, according to the law. This is how an old-fashioned must be made. This much bitters, this much sugar. Now you say, oh, you're crazy. You're making that up. Hey, I'm not making it up. Look it up on the Tax and Trade Bureau. I don't make things up and then don't source it. Or I don't say things without sourcing. I talk to other people. I've gotten into conflicts with people on social media where they say comments. And I say, well, how do you know that's true? I never heard that. Everybody knows that. Look it up. Now that's their source. Look it up. Everybody knows that. That's the Archie Bunker approach to citing a source. But I could actually go look for it if people really challenge me to it. But it is there. Just like there's the bourbon regulations, which have nothing to do with filtering, by the way. That's Jack Daniel's argument. We're not a bourbon because we charcoal filter. But yet Jim Beam Choice was charcoal filtered and it was a bourbon. So no, it doesn't make you not a bourbon. It just makes you a bourbon that you chose a charcoal filter. Oh, I think I'm picking up more wood. If you added flavoring or coloring, you wouldn't be a bourbon, because the guidelines specifically state no flavoring or color can be added. If you use if you age the whiskey in a used barrel, cannot be a bourbon. It has to be charred oak, first use, virgin charred oak barrels. Doesn't have to be white oak. It could be any kind of oak. It has to be charred. Okay. Has to be aged at least 2 years. 2, that's it. Only 2 years to be a bourbon. That is not a long aging period, 24 months, but that is the minimum, 2 years. Okay. Has to be at least 51% corn. Me and William Kepley have like almost memorized these requirements. So you say, well, how could something like 10 high be considered a bourbon when it's like mostly grain neutral spirits? What's like 27% whiskey and the rest grain neutral spirits? Ah, that's fine if the grain neutral spirits are achieved from distilling what? You got it, corn, which is probably what they're using for most of the grain neutral spirits. So it doesn't have to be a straight whiskey. That's a type of bourbon, straight bourbon whiskey. But it can be blended bourbon whiskey. Do I recommend that? Do I think that's an indication of quality? No. But it is still a bourbon. I have some in my cabinet already open. Remember the Kentucky Gentleman? There's a perfect example. It's a bourbon. It's not the greatest. It's okay. I ought to put that into the competition. I have a little bit left. Why not? Yeah, I'll do the Jethro T Boots and then the Kentucky Gentleman. Well, maybe I'll do Kentucky Gentleman first, next. Because I'll forget about it. Nice body, light to medium body. Medium finish in the sense that it doesn't drop right off, it doesn't linger around and get disgusting. Just so appropriate. Well, what do you expect? Old Granddad. It's not like Beam-Suntory started distilling whiskey last week. These are like the master craftsmen of the art of really the science, maybe more so than the art, because they're using algorithms to do this stuff, okay? Yes, inspiration, but the consistency comes from the algorithms. Same with the early times. Now, you might say, I believe there's some variants to early times. That's right. They don't list them on the website. But there's flavored. I saw one. It was like orange flavor or something. Some liquor store I saw orange flavor or peach flavor, maybe it was. Somewhere in Texas. Might have seen that in Louisiana. There's early times bourbon that sell overseas. It might be allowed to be a bourbon overseas because the U.S. law would not apply to, you know, Liechtenstein or Luxembourg, would it? But it's one of those hidden brands. They don't talk about it on the website. You know how it is with liquor, wine, and beer. There are a lot of hidden brands that are not even listed in their portfolio, but they exist because if you see them on the shelf, then you know it exists, right? There it is. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Beam's 8-star. You say, I never saw Beam's 8-star on the Jim Beam website. You sure never did. But, oh, it's from them, all right. So I think, I don't know now. You say you're stalling for time. That's what you're doing with all that ancillary discussion. Yeah. No, I'm not really by now. I'm stalling for time because now I'm a little concerned because that one just showed me some rye spice. But I mean, they may have a decent amount of rye in the early times too. No, but I think this one has more, you know. They're not vastly different though, honestly. You could pay, okay, $18 for this, for the regular size bottle. This is a half size bottle, the flask. Or you could pay $9 for this. Now, you want to pay $9 or $18? It's your business. But you're not going to get 50, I'm sorry, you're not going to get 100% more flavor or body or character or anything. One of these is not twice as good as the other. Oh no. It's maybe marginally better. You know, marginally better, we're talking about $8.99 versus $9.99, right? Not way more. That's what upsets me about people making these comments about bourbon or whiskey, says Victor, because people ignore the research about how it's made. It's distinctive taste of how better it is. Yeah, I got into this thing with, I did a whole hour-long video about what is a bourbon, and the whole the argument, the debate was resolved. Jack Daniel's is a bourbon. And I was on the side of it is a bourbon according to United States government guidelines. And then Rod J, Beer Ventures, he joined and said, it's not a bourbon. And his argument was, it's not a bourbon because I used to be a bartender and no one at the bar considered it a bourbon. It just wasn't commonly viewed as a bourbon. That's probably true. I mean, I don't know. I haven't surveyed people at bars and asked them, do you consider Jack Daniel's a bourbon? Or really, my experience around here is that people think it is a bourbon. But honestly, my experience is that most people don't even know what that means. Most people I know think it's not all opinion, Isaac. That's the whole point of my video. It wasn't all opinion. People I talk to don't think bourbon is a whiskey. They'll tell me, what's the difference between bourbon and whiskey? That's like saying, what's the difference between a Chevrolet and a car? You know, a bourbon is a type of whiskey. It's not different from whiskey. Okay? And it wasn't all opinion. I was based in, because bourbon came about from a legal definition. That is a legal definition, okay? It's not like the word craft beer, which is, no, there's an example of a commonly held idea about things. But craft beer can mean different things to different people. And it's not a legal term, okay? Bourbon is literally a legal term, and you can look that up on the Tax and Trade Bureau website. And if you need help, I'll help. And I'm not being smart mouth or anything. I'm saying I will help people reference that website, and you can see the legal definition. Okay, it's how you learn things. Like you say, well, I think World War II was bad. Okay, that's an opinion. World War II was bad. Those people would share that opinion, like 100% of the people, right? But if you said, I think World War II started in 1946, now you see that's a misstatement of fact, because everybody knows that's not true. Okay, that's an error. If you go on the tour of Jack Daniel's, they'll tell you for an hour how bourbon is made and how Jack Daniel's is made according to the bourbon guidelines. They'll tell you this for an hour. And then they tell you, well, since we charcoal age it, it's not a bourbon. No, that doesn't disqualify it. Okay, enough of the rant and rave of Ronald. But I do those things sometimes because that's like a whole thing, how we look at things, fact versus opinion and citing sources. We get into those arguments on Facebook over politics, you see. People will use opinion as facts. I say, no, that's just how you feel about it. That doesn't make it true. Okay. All right, so I'm going to say this is I almost looked. Can you imagine? I almost looked before I called it. Well, that would have been a tragedy. But I think this is Old Granddad, and I think that's Early Times. Ah, shows you what I knew. I got it backwards. That's Early Times. That's Old Granddad. I had it wrong. Hey, you know what? Blind taste tests prove a lot, because you can claim you know this and you know that, but until you don't know which is which and you do a blind taste test, then you don't really know. Carry on, Jeff and John says, hi, my friend, just to check you out. Hello. Victor says, very awesomely humble, Ron. Thank you, Victor. I'm quite humble, and I'm very proud of that. I am so proud of being humble. I brag about it all the time, about how humble I am. I just brag on and on and on. Promote that. Emphasize it. And never let it drop. The most humble person in the world, and I'm the first to admit it. No, but kidding around, but in all seriousness, I flopped. I got it wrong, okay? All right, I got it wrong. That's the risk of doing a live blind taste test, right? Because you can be shamed on the air. Isaac says, bragging about being humble is the exact opposite, by the way. It is? What do I know for sarcasm? What do I know for sarcasm? I could, now, a lot of the taste challenges I put on the air are taped, right? I put on YouTube and they're taped. I say on the air, more like the cable in many cases. It's coming over a wire, not necessarily Wi-Fi, but it could be. They say, yeah, but the taped. Hey, like that, taped. Yeah, it's 1985. I'm using the VHS tape recorder. I mean, they're recorded digitally, okay? Most of the taste challenges I post, like the beer, are recorded. So your counterpoint can be, yeah, but you could have staged it. Like the ones you failed, you just deleted them and you never posted them. Ah, that's right. I could do that. You wouldn't know, would you? Nope. I could just post all the ones where I got it right. But honestly, I don't do that, because I posted ones where I got it wrong. Remember Miller High Life, and I believe it was Miller High Life and Pabst. I got it wrong. I felt shamed. But I see no reason to manufacture this. It's like cheating. I don't understand this whole thing about cheating. I knew a guy who would steal comic books and say, look at all the comic books I have. What kind of achievement was that? I'd say, yeah, but you stole them. I bought all mine, or traded for them, mostly bought. It's like some people that brag about all their subscribers on YouTube. I have 25,000 subscribers. They tell people that all the time. I was like, yeah, but you paid for it. You paid a service to pull a crowd. It's like when the Beatles were at the airport in New York City, 1964. Look at all these girls. This group has a huge following in America, and we didn't know it. But the truth is, they paid those girls to go there. It was a plant. It was staged. Even the Beatles apparently didn't realize this. They were shocked. Who is here, the president? But Brian Epstein, their manager, manufactured the hysteria. Well, you know, they plant the girls in the audience to scream, and then it kind of creates the hysteria. We know this goes on. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not planting these things. I'm not going to stage them. If I do 10 more blind taste tests and I keep failing, then I'll just keep posting them. I'll just keep failing. What will that prove? That I'm not good at doing blind taste tests? That's what That's what it will prove. It'll also prove, I think, that these are very similar, and you can be brand loyal. You know, that people are so brand loyal. Oh, I only drink that. I don't drink that other garbage. And then you ask me, you ever tried the other garbage? Well, no, once. Well, how do you know? Why don't you do a blind taste test? I don't have time for that. No, they're not going to do it because it's too risky, you see. So you built this whole thing on, you know, you're Budweiser. I know my Budweiser. You do? You sure about that? You want to do a taste test? No, I don't do that. You know, so anyway, enough of that. So, all right, I failed. All right, I failed. Okay, all right. Next up, early times Kentucky whiskey versus, I'm going to do the Kentucky Gentleman. Yeah. Kentucky Gentleman. That'll be, and this is the plan, you know. At least you can't say for sure, you never know what's going to happen. But I'm going to say next, in 2 days from now, sun's coming out slowly but surely, we'll do the early times versus Kentucky Gentleman. And I think that'll be interesting. In that case, I think I'll be able to pick out early times because I think it'll have a richer, more full-bodied flavor, and that the Kentucky Gentleman will be more muted. And they're the same price. I mean, you'll pay the same price at a store for those two, $8.99 to $8.99, right in that range, right there, in the $8 to $10 range. Okay, so, but I think I'll be able to get it right this time. But yet, I don't know that. All right, thanks for watching this video production. I'm sorry I failed the challenge, but we don't always succeed, do we?